So I've had the privilege to be selected to be the lead coach for the Paratriathlon team at the Commonwealth Games next year. So high performance coaching is a long-term endeavour. It's all about the long game. So the athlete and the coach working together over many years in some cases to figure out what the athlete responds to in training, what their capacity for work is, what their vulnerability to injury, how they respond to different interventions, and between you and with the support of a team, you figure that out over a long period of time. It's not about short-term quick wins, at the risk of injury or halting the development of the athlete. So my inspiration for getting into coaching happened really quite late in life, particularly sports coaching. I had always had opportunities to be involved in coaching or teaching throughout my other career pathways. So I've been a soldier, an engineer, I've worked in a telecom sales team. In all of those guises, I wasn't really interested in coaching or teaching because the bottom line is I just wasn't passionate about it. But I've long since passed my sell-by date in terms of sport, and I found that when the opportunities arose for coaching in sports, I found that I could get a great deal of satisfaction out of working with kids, working with adults, helping them explore new possibilities, breaking down boundaries, helping them achieve their full potential. So it's a bit of a cliche, and it's an amalgamation of things that I've heard over the years, but I'll summarise it in one quote, and it landed really well with me. Let's see if it's of any use to anyone else. If you're not part of the solution, you're potentially part of the problem. So I'll elaborate on what that means for me. In my coaching and my view on coaching, I think that our role is beyond identifying the problem. That's not enough. Seeing what the problem is or what the challenge is only the first small step. We've got to be part of solving the problem, helping athletes or our colleagues develop strategies, methods or skills to overcome the challenges that we face. So that can apply to all of the people that I work with as well. So for instance, a practitioner identifying that there's a problem with an athlete's behaviours towards nutrition isn't the full response. So if they can influence the athlete's behaviour and change their mind and influence the way they behave around managing their food, that's great, that's coaching. So that's the transition from being a practitioner to being a coach, and if they can't do it, then I'm the performance coach, so I do it. Hopefully that would stand somebody in good stead as well. It's worked for me. So I guess, like a lot of coaches, I take a great deal of pride and satisfaction from all the successes that we achieve, working together with athletes at World Championships, Paralympic Games, winning all sorts of medals all over the world. However, my proudest moments, and I sincerely mean this, occur when I can recognise that the athletes that I'm working with are evolving and developing as individuals, taking full responsibility for their performance process, fully grasping the whole performance process for themselves, and growing into role models that I would really be proud of, standing in front of other athletes or members of the public. Okay, so with the proliferation of technology available to coaches and athletes, not least in the way that we communicate, so all social media and different electronic devices that we have for staying in touch mean that there are huge advances in the way that we can communicate easily over long distances, and there are technologies that affect the way that we can monitor and learn about the athlete's performance capabilities. Those are all fantastic things that can enhance the effectiveness of our coaching. However, there's a health warning that goes with that. It's really easy for young developing coach or any coach for that matter to get lazy and hide behind the technology. So if it's all bells and whistles and there's not much happening beyond that, then that's one of the downfalls. If you can put the fundamentals of working with the athlete and identifying what they're to work on, what their priorities are, what the task in hand is, and actually influencing their behaviour and making changes to their performance. If you can keep all of that at the forefront as your priority, then using technology is a fantastic way to support that endeavour. Okay, so there are at least two major challenges that we're faced with as we approach our preparations for the Gold Coast with the paratriathletes, particularly when we consider that the athletes competing are in the PTWC class. We have got to prepare them for the recovery from long haul travel and returning to an effective training regime so that they're in peak condition ready for the competition. There are a variety of challenges that our current cohort of wheelchair-based athletes faced. We haven't selected them yet, but we know what the challenges are for each person. So in some cases, long-haul travel and the physical stress of that can reduce their resilience to infections and minor illness and what have you, along with the problems that the rest of us face with long-haul travel. So that's the first challenge. And then the second one is, we know when the Commonwealth Games falls, it's towards the end of the Australian summer, and we know and expect that it will be quite hot and potentially quite humid. This is actually great news for us because that's what we're preparing for in the next cycle as well, the Paralympic cycle. So preparing the athletes to be able to cope with that, acclimatise and be ready to perform at their best in those conditions is quite a big deal. I think the first thing that anybody thinking about getting into coaching should really strive to do is understand how people learn, not just other people but yourself as well. Really get to grips with the principles of learning and teaching, because that's a massive part of coaching. It's not about instruction, it's about helping people learn for themselves and become resourceful and self-sufficient to a degree. So really get to grips with that. And then furthermore, make sure that you explore all avenues for learning from other sources of information. My early development as a coach, I was very internally referenced, but make sure you explore expertise where it's on available for you to go and access. So try and shadow high performing coaches in their coaching environment and see what you can learn from that. And then perhaps above all else, set out as you mean to carry on. Set yourself up for a lifelong habit of reflecting on your coaching practice, analysing what you've done. Don't analyse it to death, but always take the time to think about what you've done, how you might do it differently, how effective it was, and always think about evolving your coaching.